Good evening, my dear students. So this is the second module on GP2 about methods of charging. So in this module, we're going to talk about three different methods by which an object can be charged. So the first one is by friction. The second one is by induction. And the third one is by conduction. So just a short overview on each one. By friction, charging by friction involves dalawang object na ikikiskis mo or you will rub them against each other. Charging by induction, a neutral object ay lalapitan ng isang object that is charged, either positive or negatively charged. So what will happen after nilapit mo yung isang charged object doon sa neutral? And then letter C, charging by conduction, is somewhat similar to charging by induction. But in this case, merong contact yung dalawang object. When I say dalawang object, yung isa ay neutral and yung isa ay charged object. So let's talk about them in greater detail. So first one is charging by friction, or you can also call this as the triboelectric charging. So this is an exhibition of the phenomenon charging by friction. So for example, meron kang dalawang neutral balloons na nakatali from the ceiling to two neutral balloons. So they are made up of rubber. And then you have yung physics teacher mo, kiniskes yung yung dalawang balloon sa ulo niya. So after several rubbing, vigorous rubbing, inalis ng physics teacher yung kanyang ulo from the two balloons. And then the class observed na nagre-repel na yung dalawang balloons from each other. So we are sure na charged sila, di ba? Na hindi na sila neutral because they are able to repel each other. But we don't know yet if they are charged positive or negative. And then on one of the balloon, nilapit nung teacher yung kanyang hair ulit dun sa isang balloon. And na-observe ng klase na na-attract nung hair yung balloon na iyon. So therefore, dahil may attraction, opposite ang charges noong balloon at nung hair ng physics teacher. Now the question is, how do we know which one is positively charged? Alin sa dalawang object mo na nirab sa isa't isa yung positive and negative? Okay? From this, we observe na yung isa dyan magkakaroon ng positive charge. Tapos yung isa dyan magkakaroon ng negative charge. Because here, kita natin na na-attract nila yung isa't isa. Diba? So that means they have opposite charges. Before we analyze or before we determine which is positive and which is negative, we have to know the concept of electron affinity. So when we say electron affinity, ito yung kagustuhan or tendency of an atom to attract electrons sa kanya. Okay? So last time I mentioned that materials are made up of elements and then elements are made up of atoms, diba? Pero yung mga elements, diba? The elements in the periodic table, they are unique with each other because meron silang kanya-kanyang bilang ng protons sa kanilang atoms and electrons. Makikita mo yan sa atomic number nila. So, for example, yung hydrogen, number 1, meron siyang isang proton and electron kung neutral siya. Diba? And then, I also mentioned that electrons can be found on orbitals or electron shells or electron levels, energy levels. So, actually, bawat electron shells or energy shells, they can only accommodate a specific number of electrons. So for example, for the one nearest, it can only accommodate 2 electrons, and then level number 2, it can only accommodate 8 electrons, and so on. What I want to say is, yung outermost, sa ibang atoms, yung outermost electrons ay kulang yung kanilang laman. Ibig sabihin, may space pa, kumbaga. Pwede pang pumasok yung ibang electrons upang maging mas stable yung atom na iyon. So, syempre, kung sino yung mga atoms na may meron pang kakayahan na mag-accommodate ng more electrons sa kanilang outermost shells. Sila yung may mas mataas na electron affinity. They have the tendency to attract electrons. There's another term, no? Triboelectric series. Dito makita mo yung listahan ng object. Patas-patas ito, no? May significance yung kanilang placement diyan sa triboelectric series. Makita mo dito yung kanilang relative electron affinity sa isa't isa. So according to the description, materials shown lowest on the table have greater affinity or they want to gain electrons than those they should be above it. Okay? So for example, nirab mo yung human hair, di ba? And then rubber. So masagot na natin ngayon yung problem natin kanina. Rubber is the material na ginagamit for balloons. So for example, if you rub the human hair and rubber, you can see in the series na yung human hair ay nandun sa taas and rubber ay nandun sa lower end. So pag nirab mo silang sa isa't isa, one of them will become positively charged while the other will become negatively charged. Which one? You can use the series as a guide. So human hair will tend to lose electron. So it will lose electron or the negative particles. So it will become more positively charged after it was rubbed with rubber. Dahil yung rubber, mas malapit siya doon sa end ng mga materials na may high electron affinity. They want more electrons. So it will become negatively charged. So even if nag-rub ka ng dalawang material o surface na nandun sa taas, for example, dry hands and leather, kung alin yung nasa taas, yun yung mas magiging positive. Kahit na both of them are on the upper end of the spectrum. Okay? So, kung titignan nyo yung module, note ha, if you will look at your module, baliktad yung series na to. So, yung mga nasa taas, sila yung may mas mataas na electron affinity if you will use the module as the basis. But I use this particular series kasi mas kompleto yung materials na makita natin dito. So again, there's another principle at work here, which is the law of charge conservation. Sabi sa law of charge conservation, charges are neither created nor destroyed. They are only transferred from one object to another. So as an illustration, so di ba, neutral. Yung hair neutral din nung simula. But after rubbing, nakita natin na magiging negative yung balloons and overall positive yung human hair. So, halimbawa, meron 3 electrons dito. So, kapag law of charge conservation, hindi basta-bastang naging negative yung mga balloons na parang magic na lang bigla. No? Merong pinanggalingan o merong dahilan kung bakit siya naging negatively charged. Yun nga, mas madaming nag-transfer na electrons sa kanya. O nag-transfer sa kanya yung mga electrons from the human hair. So, just for illustration purposes, if the human hair has 3 electrons here, magta-transfer itong 3 electrons doon sa mga balloons such that magiging negatively charged na yung balloons overall, di ba? And then dahil umalis yung mga electrons from the human hair, magiging positively charged yung human hair. But if you treat this as a system, okay, di ba? So neutral, ibig sabihin equal numbers of electrons and protons. And then yung human hair, neutral din siya. Pero pinakita natin dito yung 3 electrons. So if you see the before and the after, may pinagmulan itong 3 electrons na to. Okay? And then, ibig sabihin noon, the total amount of charges ay same noong before and after. Kasi wala namang nadagdag at wala namang nabawas. Meron lang nalipat. Okay? Ganun po yung principle of charge conservation. So in the next video lecture, I will talk about charging by induction.